Well, we got a little shot of sunshine here, so I thought I'd step out and do the start to this video. I'm going to do some grafting today, grafting fruit trees. So this tree came from some people that were like Susan's grandparents, wonderful people in California, and he had grafted, I don't remember what variety, onto some rootstock. Well, when we got it here and got it going, the graft failed. It broke off in the wind, which happens sometimes, but the rootstock was still here. So another great friend of mine, older gentleman, had this beautiful mutsu tree in his backyard, big old mutsu apple. And the mutsu apple is a large green apple, similar to a Granny Smith. Some tartness, some sweetness, makes it great sauce. It makes great dried apples. It makes good pies. It's just a nice apple. So I took a cutting from his tree and put it on old Dan Duncan's rootstock, and this is what I've got. I've got this mutsu that's now mature and doing well. Well, as they will, I've got a split in this mutsu. It's not uncommon for fruit trees to get cracks and splits in them, but on seeing that, it got me thinking about grafting again. So I'm going to do some grafts today on a semi-dwarf rootstock. There are many types of rootstock you can get. The rootstock dictates the size of the tree. The root will only get so big, the tree can only get so big. So the standard old apples were on standard rootstock and they will get huge. These are all semi-dwarf, which is got them up high enough you can get at them with a ladder. But you can go to full dwarf too if you're planting trees in the backyard and you just don't want them real big. There's lots of different rootstock you can use. I'm going to do a semi-dwarf because it's what I like. It's the size tree I like. I'm going to graft this mutsu. So I've got a few of those coming back. I've got a Fuji apple over here that is just now starting to actually look like a tree. It's just been weird growing up, but it's coming along. And it's got a great apple and a later fall apple. It holds on the tree a lot longer, so I'm going to graft some of those. I have a very young Granny Smith down here that I planted just a few years ago, and it's coming up good. But it's a great pie apple. So I'm going to graft a few of those. And then the old Gravenstein here, I've got like one rootstock left, and I'll probably do one Gravenstein just because they're a nice old apple. And the Gravenstein is a real early apple, and the mutsu comes on, you know, mid fall, and the Fuji is a later season, October kind of apple. And I like to have them spread out like that because I don't always get time to harvest, you know, all at one time. So if I miss a tree, I can still get some. All right, let's get in on the bench and see if we can stick some together. So this is the rootstock that I'm using. It's an M111 EMLA 111 apple rootstock, semi-dwarf rootstock. And about 10 of those. I thought they were a little pricey, but you get what you get anymore. So what they've done is take cuttings off of suckers from the rootstock and then rooted them. So when I cut mine off and I've picked where I wanted it to graft it to, and I've got the tip left, I'm going to go ahead, put them in some root tone and stick them in over here in my rooting box and see if I can reroot those. So there's some tools you're going to need. A good sharp grafting knife, and any knife will do if it's good and sharp. Marker and some labels. I've cut my labels down so that I can actually just wrap them right in the wrapping like that. And you're going to need sign wood, and the wood are the trimmings from when you pruned your tree. You want the long tall water suckers that came up. Those are young and have lots of growth potential and are ready to go. So you want to save those when you prune from whatever you want to to graft off of. Label them so that you know what they are when you get ready to graft, because you're usually doing that in February and grafting a little later. So now we'll get set up here and see if we can put one together. All right, when we do these, we want to match up the same diameters. Some of this rootstock is kind of small. I like it a little bigger, but it'll do. So we want to match the diameters because we're trying to get cambium to cambium to match. So we'll slide our sign wood up until we get it to match the diameter, and we're in there pretty close right there. So we want to make two opposing cuts, and we want them fairly long and diagonal. Doesn't have to be quite that long. Be careful with the sharp knife, because I've already got myself a little bit. All right, so this one needs to be opposing. So we'll need to cut it down that direction. So we're about the same lengths, about the same diameter. What we're matching up is this cambium layer. That's the only part of the tree that grows. So the wood part inside never changes. That spot that we're going to have separated here will never heal. Like flesh, when we cut ourselves deep, that will all heal back together. A tree won't. It'll only continue to grow from there out. So we're going to make some cuts. We want to go in just part way in on this and cut down. And we're making a tongue. So that the two of them are held together a little better. So now I want to come in on my rootstock about the same distance on the same tip end and make a cut down. Like that. So both of these are out at the tip. They're not in the center. Now, as I slide those two together, I want to slide them down till this top part is close to matching and the bottom part's as close as we can get, and then we're trying to line up those cambium layers. The more cambium that's lined up, the better chance the graft has to make it. Now I have some grafting tape here, and you can use about any tape that you can put a little stretch to really hold that tight. And so we'll start to wrap, and as soon as I get it to hold, I want to twist my sticks, and as I'm coming around I want to be checking and making sure those are still lined up. We'll go up a bit and we'll start our way down, and again I'm lining up, making sure those cambiums are as close to lined up as possible on every twist. And apples are pretty darn forgiving for grafting. If you're close, they'll usually take. The big trick again is to let them heal long enough before you take the support off. The one with Dan Duncan hadn't finished healing before I took it apart, and it then broke off in a windstorm. Had the wind not blowing on it, it probably would have finished healing up just fine. All right, so we're pulling this good and snug. So we're trying to make that match up as best we can. And then I cut these little tags, and I just put them right in there with them and wrap them right in on the last wrap. Now once these are done, I'll heat some beeswax and coat these just to keep it sealed up, and any extra bacteria or funguses or anything else from getting in there. So that'll seal this tag right on there too. And then once this is all healed and you're ready to take it off, if you don't take it off, the tree will grow against it and eventually it'll kill the tree. But when the tree's growing well and you're pretty sure that it's all healed, you'll just take a knife and run it down the whole thing and cut this off. So there we go. Now I'm going to label it before I forget what it is. Zamutsu. All right, now I only want a few buds up here to break. I don't want this graft to try to have to support all of those buds. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to give it 4 or 5 good buds and I'm going to cut it off. And we'll let it go from there. Cut my tag off. All right, now with that done, I've got this the tip that was the rootstock, and I'm going to go ahead and make some cuts down it. You're just abusing it. You want it to stimulate growth, and the more it's beat up and thinks things are bad, the better chance it has to do that. So I have some root hormone, root tone, and I'll dip it down in that, as much of that in it as I can. And then we'll take it right over here into this box. It's mostly sand. You don't want it to start rotting while it's trying to root, but you want it to hold some moisture. So there's a little bit of peat moss in there, and there it is. We'll start watching that grow, and if those roots take, next year I can graft onto that rootstock, not have to buy more. I'm going to melt a little wax here to coat those grafts with. Doesn't have to get fancy. I just wandered around until I found some beeswax. Then I grabbed a little old mink feeder. Came with some mink cages we bought years ago. Threw the beeswax in it, just going to heat it up. Get it melted. So I have no shortage of beeswax around here because I have honeybees. Anyone interested in checking those out can check out Harris Schubert at Sleepy Creek Apiary on YouTube. I've got a channel on there with the bees. All right, now I've got my wax melted, and I'm just going to coat over these grafts to seal that up, harden it some. Just helps to hold it, helps to seal out any bad stuff that may try to creep in there while this is trying to join. Doesn't take an awful lot of it, but I got it pretty warm, so it takes a second to cool off. Well guys, I'm having trouble with my battery in this GoPro. I bought some cheap ones and they just die. They 45% battery life and it shuts the camera off. So I've had to go get new batteries. I don't know how much we got shot with the waxing them, but I warmed up some beeswax and got them all coated. They're now potted up in this bigger pot, and we'll let them break bud there. I want to get them outside. I don't want them in the greenhouse. It'll force growth too fast, and I don't want that. I want them to grow slowly and heal that wound where I put them together. So hopefully we didn't botch too much of the darn thing and the grafting. It's a hard one to reshoot.